Emily lived alone on the third floor of an older apartment building just outside of Milwaukee. She had moved in a year ago after a breakup, choosing this quiet building for its peace and privacy. The windows of her bedroom overlooked a narrow alley that was rarely used, except by the occasional trash truck or delivery van. It was a Tuesday night. She had stayed up late watching a documentary and was just getting into bed when she glanced at the window. That's when she saw him. A man standing directly in the alley under the single flickering light. He was looking up, looking right at her. At first, Emily didn't panic. Maybe it was someone from the building below. Maybe he was smoking, or drunk, or waiting for a ride. She sat there for a moment, watching him, thinking he'd eventually move or walk off, but he didn't. He didn't move at all. He just stood there, staring. The alley wasn't well lit, but from her view, she could make out the general details. He looked like a man in his 30s. No hat, no hood. Short, dark hair. Pale skin. He wasn't swaying or shifting his weight like someone casually standing. He was perfectly still, like a statue. No phone in his hand. No cigarette. Just eyes, locked with hers through the glass. Emily's stomach turned. She backed away from the window, her breath shallow. The rational part of her brain was trying to explain it away. It's just some weirdo, maybe drunk, maybe lost. She turned off the bedroom light to get a better look without being seen. That's when it hit her. How had he seen her in the first place? With the lights on and her blinds slightly open, he shouldn't have been able to see her clearly from down below. But his eyes, they followed her as if he knew exactly where she was. Emily stepped closer to the window again, cautiously, and peeked through the side of the curtain. He was still there, still staring. UNMOVING. She checked the clock. It was 2:47 a.m. She told herself she'd wait 5 minutes. If he didn't leave, she'd call someone. The police, maybe the building manager. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Then 20. He did not move. She checked again at 3:17 a.m. He was still there. Emily finally picked up her phone and called 911. Her voice trembled as she explained the situation. "Hi. I'm not sure if this is an emergency, but there's a man standing outside my window. He's been there for almost half an hour. Just standing, not saying anything. He's looking up at my apartment." The operator asked her some questions. Location, description, if he had a weapon, and assured her that an officer would be dispatched immediately. 15 minutes later, red and blue lights painted the alley walls. Emily ran to the window again. The man was gone. The alley was empty. The squad car sat quietly below, with 2 officers scanning the area. One of them shined a flashlight into the corners and dumpsters. Nothing. Emily buzzed them into the building and spoke with them at her door. She described what she had seen. They were polite, but clearly skeptical. "You said he was here for 30 minutes? One officer asked. "Yes," Emily replied. "He never moved." The other officer glanced out her window. "You're on the 3rd floor," he said, looking down. "He was just standing in the alley?" Emily nodded. "Right under the street lamp." They went down to inspect the area. Again, this time more thoroughly. Emily watched from her window as they paced the alley. That's when she realized something strange. There were no footprints. No wet shoe prints. No dirt. The ground was a little damp from light rain earlier in the night. But the spot where he stood was clean, untouched. The officer returned after a few minutes. "Whoever he was, he's gone," he said. "Could have been someone passing through. Could have been nothing." Emily nodded, even though her gut told her this wasn't nothing. They left a few minutes later. She didn't sleep that night. The blinds stayed shut. Her bedroom light stayed on. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that pale face, frozen in place, watching her by morning. She convinced herself it was just a creepy guy who wandered off before the cops arrived, until the next night. It was around the same time, just after 2:45 a.m. Emily was in bed, scrolling her phone, when a cold sensation ran through her chest. The kind you feel when you know something is wrong. She got out of bed and walked to the window, slowly pulling back the blinds. He was there. Again. Same man. Same spot. But this time, he wasn't down in the alley. He was on the fire escape, right outside her window, less than 5 feet away. Just standing. Staring. Emily slammed the blinds shut. Her heart raced so fast it made her chest ache. He was closer this time, on the fire escape, just outside her bedroom window, still not moving, still staring. She backed away, unsure of what to do. Her mind was screaming, call the police again. But deep down, something told her it wouldn't help. They hadn't believed her before. And even if they came again, he'd vanish like last time. She grabbed her phone and did the only thing she could think of. She hit record. She filmed through a small opening between the blinds, keeping the camera low, hoping the man wouldn't notice. It was dark, but the porch light from the next building over gave just enough glow to capture his shape. His head was tilted slightly now. Was it following her? No, it couldn't be. He hadn't moved. He never moved. After 3 minutes, she stopped recording. She turned away and crouched behind her bed, knees shaking, holding the phone tight in both hands. Her only plan now was to stay quiet and wait for daylight. She eventually fell asleep sometime after 5 a.m., too drained to keep her eyes open any longer. When she woke, sunlight was streaming in through the cracks in the blinds. She rushed to the window and yanked the curtain aside. The fire escape was empty. She opened the window slowly and looked around. No signs of anyone. No smudges on the glass. No footprints. Nothing. It was like he'd never been there. Later that afternoon, Emily remembered the video. She had almost forgotten she recorded anything. She pulled it up and pressed play. The footage showed exactly what she saw. The man standing there, motionless, on the fire escape. But as she watched it a second time, something felt off. She paused and rewound. There, in the corner, something moved behind him. Emily zoomed in. At first it just looked like darkness shifting, a trick of the light. But as she scrubbed the video back and forth slowly, she saw it again. A hand, pale and thin, sliding around the edge of the frame. It wasn't his hand. The man outside the window never moved. This hand came from behind him, from something even deeper in the shadows. She watched the entire clip a third time. Right before the video ended, she could barely make out what looked like a second face. Lower, smaller, and completely still, like it was crawling behind the man's legs. But then the clip cut off. Emily dropped the phone. She was now more terrified than before. There wasn't just one figure. There were two. She couldn't sit alone in her apartment anymore. She grabbed her keys and called her friend Jordan. Jordan lived about 20 minutes away. They hadn't spoken in weeks, not since the breakup with her ex, but she needed someone. She told him there was something she needed to show him, something she couldn't explain. He said she could come over. She didn't even bother changing. She just put on her jacket, stuffed the phone in her bag, and left the apartment. Jordan was surprised to see how shaken she looked. He poured her some water while she explained everything. The man at the window, how long he stared, how he appeared again on the fire escape. Then she showed him the video. Jordan watched it silently, not blinking once. When it ended, he just stared at the screen. What the hell is that? He finally whispered. She shrugged. I don't know. But it's not just the man. Something's behind him. Something else is out there. Jordan took the phone and slowed the video using an editing app. He enhanced the brightness, increased the contrast. Now, the second figure was clearer. Too clear. It was a face, but barely. Human. Its skin was tight and grayish, with large black eyes and a mouth that looked stitched shut. And it wasn't behind the man. It was attached to his back. They sat there in silence. Jordan rewound the footage. Again, at 2 minutes and 34 seconds. The creature's head seemed to turn ever so slightly toward the camera. Toward Emily. She backed away. I'm not going back there tonight. You shouldn't, Jordan said. Stay here, just for the night. Emily agreed. Jordan set up the couch for her and offered to check her apartment in the morning. But later that night, as they were both trying to sleep, Emily's phone buzzed. It was a notification from her apartment's smart home app. Motion detected. Bedroom. Jordan stared at the phone. Do you have a camera in your bedroom? He asked. No, she whispered. Just motion sensors. They only trigger if something moves. They both stared at the screen. Another alert came in. Motion detected. Living room. But no one was there. Emily wasn't home, and she had locked the door behind her when she left. Cliffhanger. Emily opened the app to view the live feed from her single indoor camera, one she had placed in the living room months ago, facing the entry door. The screen loaded. At first, it was quiet. Then, a shadow moved across the wall. A hand reached out from the hallway. And then, for just a second, a face leaned into frame. It wasn't the man from the fire escape. It was the thing on his back. Emily didn't sleep that night. Even though she wasn't in her apartment, she felt like something was still watching her. The image from the security camera replayed in her mind over and over again, the long pale fingers creeping across the wall, the face that leaned toward the lens. That thing wasn't just with the man now. It was inside her home. The next morning, Jordan offered to go back with her to check the place. Emily agreed, but only if they both stayed close and kept the visit short. When they arrived, everything seemed normal on the surface. The door was locked. No windows were broken. No drawers had been touched. But Emily knew something wasn't right. She could feel it. The air was heavy, like it was holding a breath. While Jordan walked through the kitchen, Emily noticed something tucked under her front door, a small folded piece of paper. It hadn't been there the day before. She bent down, picked it up, and opened it. The message was short, written in shaky, uneven handwriting. He comes back when people notice. Don't look anymore. There was no name, no explanation, just those words. Jordan came out of the kitchen and saw the paper in her hands. What's that? Emily handed it to him without a word. He read it, then looked up. Someone in the building must have left this. A neighbor, maybe? Emily immediately thought of the old man down the hall, Mr. Langley. He was in his late 70s and barely ever left his unit. She had only spoken to him twice, both times in the elevator. Once, months ago, he had told her, "This building has long memories, young lady. Don't dig into them." She hadn't thought much of it back then, but now it felt like a warning. Emily and Jordan knocked on Mr. Langley's door. At first, there was no answer, but after a minute, the old man opened it just a crack. His tired eyes blinked at them. "Emily," he said softly, "I was wondering when you'd come." She held up the note. "Did you leave this?" Mr. Langley nodded, slowly. "I saw him," he whispered. "2 nights in a row now. I didn't think he'd find someone again." "Not so soon." Emily stepped closer. "You've seen him before?" Mr. Langley opened the door wider and let them in. His apartment was dim and silent, filled with old books, faded wallpaper, and clocks that had stopped ticking. He led them to the small living room and motioned for them to sit. "You're not the first," he said. "In 1998, a woman named Lena McKay lived in your exact unit. She was young. Lived alone, just like you." Emily leaned in, heart pounding. "One night, she saw him through the window, just like you. Thought he was a stalker. Thought he was human." "What happened to her?" Jordan asked. "She started losing time," Mr. Langley said. "Woke up with her windows open, doors unlocked. Found strange scratches on the floor she didn't remember making. Eventually, she vanished." "Vanished?" Emily asked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, she was there one day and gone the next. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, just gone." Mr. Langley stood slowly and shuffled toward a shelf. He pulled out a dusty shoebox and brought it to the coffee table. Inside were newspaper clippings, handwritten notes, and an old photograph. The picture showed a group of people in front of the building. Mr. Langley was one of them, young, smiling. Beside him stood a tall man in dark clothes. But his face was blurry. "It never comes out clear," Langley said. "No matter the camera, no matter the film. A figure never shows up right." Emily picked up one of the newspaper clippings. "Local woman missing. No leads in mysterious disappearance." Another clipping mentioned 2 other tenants who had gone missing over the last 30 years. All from the same floor. All after reporting someone watching them from the alley. "Why is this happening?" Emily asked, voice cracking. Mr. Langley looked at her with tired eyes. "Because you saw him, and you looked back." Jordan leaned forward. "Then how do we stop it?" "You don't," Langley said. "You don't run. You don't fight. You do what the rest of us do." "What's that?" "You pretend you never saw him." They left the apartment a few minutes later. Emily felt colder than she had before. Not because of what she saw, but because someone else had seen it too, and lived with the consequences. Back in her apartment, she closed every blind. She turned on every light. She told herself she wouldn't look out the window again, but she couldn't help it. Around 2:45 a.m., she peeked. The alley was empty. The fire escape was clear. She sighed in relief and turned away. The next morning, Emily decided to thank Mr. Langley for the warning. She walked down the hall and knocked on his door. No answer. She knocked again. Nothing. She went down to the main office and asked the building manager to do a welfare check. An hour later, the paramedics arrived. Mr. Langley was found in his chair. Dead. No injuries. No signs of a struggle. But his eyes were missing, and carved into the wall above him, scratched by fingernails, were 3 words. "He saw me." Emily hadn't spoken a word in hours. She sat alone in her apartment, the lights off, the blinds drawn, phone clutched in her hand, staring at nothing. Mr. Langley was dead. He had tried to warn her, told her to stop looking, told her it would come back. And now he was gone. The detail the police didn't release to the public, but that the building manager accidentally mentioned, was the worst part. His eyes had been removed. No blood. No trauma. Just missing, like they were never there. To begin with, Emily knew something was horribly wrong with her building. Not just the man outside the window, not just the thing crawling behind him, something deeper, something connected to the building itself. She needed answers. The next morning, Emily drove across town to the public records office. She asked for the building's history, former owners, maintenance records, police reports, anything she could legally get. The clerk, a bored-looking man in his 60s, raised an eyebrow when she gave the address. "That place again?" he muttered. Emily froze. "You've heard of it?" The man nodded. "Most people who come asking about that building leave halfway through the paperwork." He slid a manila folder across the counter. "Good luck." Emily opened the file and read through pages of faded ink and yellowed documents. What she found made her skin crawl. 5 tenants had gone missing over the last 40 years. All of them lived on the 3rd floor. All were single. All had filed disturbance reports in the weeks leading up to their disappearances. Reports that described the same thing. A man staring through the window. Shadow figures in the hallway. Hearing breathing at night. But no one there. One woman, Meera Patel, had lived in Emily's exact unit in 2019. She disappeared without a trace. Police found her front door locked from the inside. Her phone was still charging. Beside her bed was still made, and the only thing out of place? Her closet door was open. Emily's hands shook as she flipped to the final page in the folder. It was a photo from Meera's apartment. A mirror, shattered with the words "Don't look at him," written in red lipstick across the glass. Emily shut the folder. Her apartment wasn't just unlucky. It was cursed. She returned home with her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to pack a bag and leave, but something held her back. A sick curiosity, or maybe it was fear, not of what might follow her if she stayed, but what might follow her if she left. As night approached, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone in the apartment. Not in the way most people mean. It wasn't just footsteps or shadows. It was something else. Something inside the walls. 2:44 a.m. She sat up in bed. The air had shifted again. Heavy, still. She didn't want to look, but her eyes turned to the window on their own. It was empty. No man. No face. Only darkness. She turned away, breathing hard. Then she heard a metallic creak. She looked back and saw the ladder of the fire escape shaking slightly, like something had just climbed it. But no one was there. The next morning, she made herself check every part of the apartment. Closets, kitchen, bathroom. Finally, she opened the bedroom wall vent, one she had never touched before. Inside, something was wedged between the grates. She reached in carefully and pulled out a small object. A necklace, delicate, silver, with a small red stone in the center. The tag on the back had an engraving. MP. Meera Patel. Emily dropped it instantly. She was holding something that belonged to a woman who had vanished from her apartment 5 years earlier. She didn't find a single fingerprint in the vent, but there were scratches inside, the metal deep ones, like someone had tried to claw their way out. That night, she didn't sleep at all. She sat on her couch with the lights on, staring at the front door, waiting for something to happen. But nothing came. No knocks. No motion alerts. Just silence. At 3:09 a.m., her phone buzzed. A new notification. Face detected. Bedroom camera. But the camera feed showed nothing. Just an empty room. She opened the last saved snapshot. There was something blurry in the corner, too low to be a full person, but it had eyes. Emily zoomed in on the blurred image. The eyes weren't human. They were wide, reflective, like a cat's, and staring directly at the lens. The timestamp on the photo? 3 hours 33 minutes and 33 seconds. M. Again. Same as before. The same impossible time. Emily hadn't left her apartment in 3 days. Her phone was covered in motion, alerts and glitched screenshots from her security app. Most were empty, but a few had shapes. Some blurred, others so faint they could have been tricks of the light, but the eyes were always the same. Too round, too wide, like they were always open. Watching. At 2:46 a.m., her phone buzzed again. Face detected. Bedroom camera. She was done ignoring it. Emily opened the feed, fully expecting the same blank frame as before. This time, the feed wasn't empty. It showed the mirror on her bedroom wall, and in it, something stood behind her bed. Not a reflection of the room. A reflection of something that wasn't supposed to be there. Emily jumped to her feet and stormed into the bedroom. There was nothing there. The bed was untouched. The mirror still. She moved closer and stared into the glass, searching every inch of the reflection. And that's when she saw him, the man from the window. Not outside. Inside the reflection. Standing in the room with her, just out of reach. Perfectly still. His mouth hung open slightly, like he was silently screaming, and something else clung to his back. That second face, twisted, smaller, eyes bulging wide. Emily staggered backward, heart pounding. But the moment she broke eye contact, the reflection changed. The man was gone. The next day, she called Jordan again. She showed him the clip. He watched in silence, then closed the phone and said quietly, "He's not just watching you anymore." "What do you mean?" "You saw him in the mirror. That means he's crossed over. That's not just a spirit. That's a parasite." Emily frowned. "A what?" Jordan sat forward. "I read something. A thread on a horror forum. Years ago, some guy claimed his cousin had a stalker that appeared at night, in reflections, in glass, sometimes in shadows. He said the only thing that made it worse was looking directly at it." Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. "So what happens if I keep looking?" Jordan didn't answer right away. He just said, "That's how it gets in." That night, Emily taped black garbage bags over every mirror in the apartment. She closed her laptop, turned off the TV, even unplugged her microwave because of the reflection in the door. She sat alone, phone off, lights dim, trying not to look at anything. But around 3 a.m., her phone buzzed anyway. No alerts this time, just a message from an unknown number. The text read, "Too late. You've already seen me." Emily's hands shook as she stared at the screen. Her heart was beating so fast it made her vision blur. She dropped the phone and turned toward the hallway, just in time to see her living room mirror peel open like water, like like the glass, and for a moment, a hand reached through. Long, gray, twitching fingers touched the air. Emily grabbed a lamp and threw it at the mirror, shattering it into pieces. The hand vanished. She didn't sleep. She just waited for the sun. When it rose, she grabbed her keys and drove to a local psychic shop Jordan told her about. The woman there, mid-40s, covered in bracelets and long scarves, looked at Emily the moment she walked in and said, "You looked at it, didn't you?" Emily froze. "You need to understand," the woman continued. "It doesn't want to hurt you. Not yet. It wants you to keep watching. That's how it feeds. On fear. On attention. What is it? We call them window watchers. They appear when you give them too much focus. They attach when you notice, and they enter when you look too long." Emily whispered, "How do I stop it?" The woman hesitated. "You might not be able to, but you can slow it down. Stop looking. Block all reflections. And whatever you do, never speak to it." Emily shook her head. "Speak to it? I've never," the woman interrupted. "It will try. It will imitate voices, loved ones, even your own. If you answer, it knows you're ready." Emily drove home in silence. But when she reached her door, she found something resting on the doormat. A mirror shard. With a small message carved into the glass. 4 words, etched by a fingernail. "Say my name, Emily." Cliffhanger. Emily turned the shard over and saw her reflection staring back. But the reflection didn't copy her movements. It smiled. And whispered, "Go ahead, look." Emily stared at the shard of glass in her hand. It was cold. Too cold. Even though she stood in the hallway of her apartment, fully clothed in a summer jacket, the glass felt like it had come from a freezer. Her reflection in it smiled again. But Emily wasn't smiling. She dropped the shard, and it shattered at her feet. She didn't go inside right away. Instead, she went downstairs to speak to Vic. the building's janitor. He was in his early 60s, wore headphones while he worked, and always seemed a little too quiet. This time, when Emily approached him, he was already looking at her, almost like he expected it. "I need to see the security footage," she said. Vic hesitated. "I know you have access. The hallway cams. The lobby. I just need one night's footage." He looked at her for a long second, then nodded. "Come on." He brought her to a dusty back room filled with monitors, a flickering overhead bulb, and an old computer tower humming loudly under the desk. Vic pulled up the file from 2 nights ago, the night she had destroyed the mirror. "What time?" he asked. Emily didn't hesitate. "Start at 3 a.m. The screen showed the hallway outside her door. Nothing happened for the first few minutes. No sounds. No movement. Then, at 3:09 a.m., her front door opened. From the inside. Emily stiffened. "No one else was home," she whispered. "I was sleeping on the couch." Vic didn't respond. A dark shape emerged from her apartment. It looked like a man, at first tall, thin, walking stiffly, but his legs didn't bend. He just glided down the hall, and the camera didn't follow his movements right. He would blink in and out of frame every few steps. Then, at 3 hours 33 minutes and 33 seconds a.m., the video glitched. The hallway lights flickered, and when they came back on, he was gone. Emily sat back in the chair, frozen. Vic said quietly, "I've seen that thing before, only a few times. Always after someone on the 3rd floor starts asking questions." "Why didn't you warn anyone?" Vic looked at her. "Because every person I warned disappeared." Emily left the security room in a daze. The man hadn't just been watching. He had been inside, and she hadn't even known. The open windows, the disappearing objects, the sounds at night. He wasn't trying to break in. He was trying to make her trust he never had. That night, Emily sealed every door and window with duct tape. She shoved towels under every crack. She left all the lights on, even in the closets. For the first time ever, she turned off the cameras. She didn't want to see any more. At 2:45 a.m., she heard her phone vibrate once on the counter. One new video saved. Camera 3. Bedroom she had in. T turned the cameras off from the app. She walked to the phone and opened the video. Showed her bedroom. Still silent. Then the closet door creaked open. A tall figure stepped out backward, like it had been folded inside. It stood in front of her bed, facing the camera. The face was not fully formed. Its features glitched and distorted like a corrupted image file. As it leaned closer to the camera, it changed. Its face became hers. Emily dropped the phone and ran to Jordan's house. She banged on the door until he opened it. Of breath, she showed him the footage. He watched it once and said, "You need to leave that apartment tonight. Don't go back." But she shook her head. "If I leave, I'll take it with me." Jordan didn't answer right away. Then he said, "What if it's not the apartment? What if it's you it's following?" Emily turned her phone off for good that night. No more cameras. No more apps. No more mirrors. She fell asleep on Jordan's couch. At 3:33 a.m., Jordan woke to a soft tapping sound from the hallway. He grabbed a baseball bat and slowly stepped out of the room. What he saw made him stop cold. The hallway mirror showed someone standing behind him, but when he turned around, no one was there. The mirror, though, still showed Emily asleep on the couch, and behind her, the man was staring. Emily woke up to the sound of voices. She was on Jordan's couch, wrapped in a blanket, and it was still dark outside. Voices whispered from the kitchen. They sounded like her and Jordan, but she and Jordan were both asleep. She sat up and looked around. The living room was empty, but the voices continued. Soft. echoing, like they were just outside her hearing. She followed them toward the kitchen. The lights were off, but the glow from the microwave clock lit up the room just enough to see. There was no one there, only the voice of herself softly whispering, "Emily, open the door. He's not there anymore." She froze. And then the microwave door snapped open by itself. Jordan found her standing in the hallway 20 minutes later, her face pale and her eyes wide. She didn't even remember moving there. By 9 a.m., Emily had made a decision. She drove straight to the local police station and asked to speak with Detective Fields. The officer who responded the first night, the man was outside her window. He remembered her. "Miss Quinn, are you okay? You look like you haven't slept in days." Emily explained everything. The mirrors, the texts, the man from the camera footage. She even showed him the saved video from her bedroom. He watched it silently. Then he shook his head and handed the phone back. "There's nothing on this video." Emily grabbed it and played it again. But this time he was right. The file was corrupted. Just blackness. A low, static hung. No closet. No man. No face. Nothing. She looked up in horror. It was just there. You saw it. "Miss Quinn, I think you need to speak with someone. A professional." She stood up, shaking. "No, I'm not. Crazy. Someone's in my apartment. Someone is following me." Fields leaned in slightly. "We did a sweep of your building again this morning. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. And," he hesitated, "there's no Vic listed in the employee records. Your building doesn't have a janitor." Emily blinked. "What?" "We checked. No one by that name. No one has worked maintenance in that building for years. It's a private contract now." Emily ran out of the station without another word. She called Jordan on the way back. Vic never existed. Or, he's not what he said he was. Jordan was quiet. Then he said, "You're not going to believe this, but I checked the hallway mirror this morning, and it doesn't show my reflection anymore. Just yours, and that thing behind you." That night, Emily went back to her apartment one last time. She needed something from inside. Her grandmother's necklace, stored in a locked drawer. She thought maybe, just maybe, it could protect her. Inside, the apartment felt colder than it ever had. The lights flickered. Every reflective surface was covered, but something still felt. Watched. She got the necklace. As she was locking the drawer again, she heard a sound behind her. Call on footsteps. Slow. Barefoot. From the hallway. She turned quickly, but saw nothing. And then her phone buzzed. Airdrop request. Mirrorboy.mp4. Her hands shook as she accepted the file. The video showed her sleeping on Jordan's couch, filmed from inside the room. The camera slowly zoomed in on her face, then panned slightly to show the man's head peeking from behind the couch. She dropped the phone. Outside her window, the same figure stood in the alley, not staring in this time, staring up. Like he was waiting for someone to jump. Emily backed away from the window. Her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but the contact name read me. She answered. No one spoke on the other end. Then, after a long pause, her own voice said, "You shouldn't have looked." And then, from the speaker, she heard her front door open. Even though it was still locked. She turned to run, but the hallway was already full of darkness. Not just shadows. Absence. And inside, footsteps again. As she reached the front door and flung it open, she realized she wasn't stepping out into the hallway. She was stepping into another room, one that looked exactly like her apartment, only it was empty. No light. No sound. Just mirrors. And in every mirror, he was already standing. Emily didn't know how long she stood in that place. It looked like her apartment, but it wasn't. The walls were wrong. The air was heavy, like breathing. Through wet cloth, there were no windows, no doors. Just mirrors. Dozens of them. Each one showed her. But not exactly her. One version had a bruised face. One had no eyes. One was smiling when she wasn't. And one stood still and didn't blink. That version tilted. Its head. Emily didn't. "Where am I?" she whispered. Her voice echoed, but not in the way it should have. It sounded like two voices, layered slightly off. Hers and something else. She turned around slowly, backing away from the mirrors, and then she realized something. Each step she took wasn't being reflected anymore. Her mirrors stood still. Only she moved. That's when the lights above her began to flicker. One by one, the mirrors turned black, like they were shutting off. Except one, the one with the version of herself that smiled. It stepped out of the mirror. Emily froze. The figure looked identical to her. Same clothes, same necklace, same cut on the hand from the broken glass. But its eyes were too wide. It walked past her slowly, brushing against her shoulder, and whispered, "You've been replaced before. You just don't remember." She turned to stop it, but it was already gone, vanished into the darkness. Suddenly, the walls peeled away. The mirrors dissolved into static. And Emily woke up. Back on Jordan's couch. Sweating. Panting. Light streamed through the blinds. Was it morning? She sat up, checked her phone. 6:34 a.m. Had it all been a dream? She stood and walked to the bathroom to splash water on her face. As she looked into the mirror, she saw herself. Same face, same tired eyes, but her reflection's left hand was cut. Emily checked her own hand. It was clean. No cut. The phone buzzed again. AirDrop? Request. You are not you. MP4. She dropped the phone and backed away. Jordan entered the room, rubbing his eyes. "You okay?" Emily turned. "Yeah, I think I'm fine." But her voice didn't sound right. Even to her. Too flat. Too calm. Too rehearsed. That night, Jordan left her alone to go grab food. While he was gone, Emily sat on the floor, staring into a small mirror she had found under the couch. She blinked once. So did her reflection. Then she raised her left hand. The reflection raised its right. She smiled. The reflection. DIDN single quotes T. Instead, it said with no sound, "You're not supposed to be here." She dropped the mirror. The hallway light flickered. Behind her, she heard the front door open, but she hadn't unlocked it. When Jordan came back 15 minutes later, he found Emily sitting calmly at the table, smiling faintly. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," she said softly. "I feel like myself again." He nodded. But when he turned away, Emily didn't blink for over a minute, and her reflection on the microwave door? It didn't blink at all. No one has seen the original. Emily, since that week. Her phone was found in an alley 6 blocks from the apartment. The last saved video was corrupt except for the audio. It repeated one sentence over and over. "You are not you. You are not you. You are not you." I don't know what the man was, or what he wanted, but whoever or whatever is wearing Emily's face now isn't Emily.